Hello, my friends. My name is Yuri Kofner. I'm an economist with the MIWI Institute for Market Integration and Economic Policy, which is a German and European think tank which provides liberal, conservative, and right-wing parties in Europe with qualitative policy advice on several different economic issues on economic policy. And today we have our first live discussion and live stream on a series, I hope, which will be, where we will discuss economic policy issues, but from a right-wing angle. I hope this will bring some new insights, both for those who are interested, who are part of the right wing in Europe, in the West, but also for those who are just looking at it from the side, maybe, or maybe critical, saying that right-wingers are populists in a bad sense. And this will help you gain some more understanding on why right-wing parties have these in certain demands and views on economic issues. And I think there's no better topic to start this kind of series with the topic which we will discuss today, which is the election results in Italy on the 25th of September. The right-wing parties, Fratelli d'Italia, Lega and Forza Italia together gained 43.8% of the votes, which is amazingly high. It is a kind of a right-wing revolution in Italy. And of course, there have been many voices, critical voices in the mainstream media that this is a new populist overturn, maybe worse even than when Trump took office in the White House in 2016. And I'm very happy to have two very wonderful guests who are insiders and experts. To the left of me, I don't know if it's the left or the right to the top, the young man with the glasses and the beard is Davide Quadri. Davide Quadri, he's the international secretary for the Young Lega, so the youth movement of the Lega party. And he's also a policy advisor for the Identity and Democracy Party in the European Parliament, also for the Lega. David, nice to have you here.
Nice to meet you, nice to be there, and thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. And below us, I don't know if it will be showing this in a live stream, I think so, but still, we have Lorenzo Bernasconi. He is a research fellow with the Machiavelli Centre for Policy Studies, and he's a policy advisor for the Italian Minister of Economic Development, Giancarlo Giorgetti. Lorenzo, nice to have you. I hope I didn't butcher all your names.
No, it's okay. Good evening. It's nice to be here with you and to join this discussion today that I hope is the first of a long series.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I hope we will continue our cooperation with the Machiavelli Centre, which is, I understand, similar, that it is near to the Lega. I hope I'm not saying too much, but you have obviously a very different policy approach than the mainstream think tanks.
Absolutely, yes. We are not officially linked to any party. Of course, we support policies that are close to the parties of center-right, so Lega and Fratelli d'Italia, and partly Forza Italia, but we are a research institution that is independent.
Okay, wonderful. Great to have you. So before we dive into economic policy, my first question, or my first thing what I would like to do, of course, is to congratulate both of you to your amazing victory. How does it feel? How does it feel to be in the government the second consecutive time, and now to be in government again with such an amazing result? David.
Well, finally, Italy have the opportunity after almost 10 years to have a clear majority in the parliament and a real conservative right-wing majority in the parliament. It's a long time that we don't have such a result. Mm-hmm. The last time was with the Berlusconi government, so it will be a comeback for the right-wing to be a complete ruling party in a ruling majority in our parliament. So for the upcoming 5 years, we're gonna have a solid center-right majority in the parliament. In both the house, as you know, Italy is a bicameral republic, So we have the Senate and we have the House of Deputies with the same power. So it's quite important to have a strong majority in both the chamber, the upper and the lower chamber, because otherwise it would be was also common to strong majority maybe just in the House of Deputies and a short majority in the Senate. For this time, everything going to be different. We're going to have a true solid majority in our parliament, and then we can we hope to deliver. We have to deliver because people give us a lot of trust, despite not a huge turnout compared to the other election. But at the same time, we have the opportunity and we have the duty to perform to our voters.
Wonderful. Lorenzo, so does this mean that for the first time in a long history, the Italian government will have stability, and the stability will also give you the opportunity to have real reforms and real change?
Well, we hope so. I mean, it's a great result for the center-right, but it's also a great responsibility. In this moment, stability is what the country really needs more than ever. The scenario at global level, at European level, the conflict in Ukraine is totally stable, and only a strong and long-lasting government can handle the country in this difficult context. So I think this government has all the necessary numbers in members of deputies and the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate to last for 5 years and to do a good job. We still have to see who will be in the government, the name of the ministers, but I think the number of deputies, and especially in the Senate, historically, the Senate is the chamber where numbers are always difficult to get. Sometimes we don't have a clear majority there. Almost never we had a clear majority there in the last 10-15 years. So it's the first real occasion for the center right.
Yeah,
and of course we don't have to waste this unique occasion.
Yeah. So you said that Italy needs stability, and one of the biggest issues, of course, which is against this stability, which can cause major social upheaval, no matter which government is in charge, is of course the extremely high inflation, historically, I guess, unprecedented, also for Italy. 9.5% in September was the inflation rate. 40% was the producer price inflation rate. And of course, this is caused mainly, partially, of course, by the expansionist monetary policy of the European Central Bank, but also and mainly, of course, by the extremely risen energy prices, and especially for the gas price. So the gas price at the European gas exchange has risen from about 20 euros per megawatt hour to about 200, 250, 275, up to almost 300 euros in the last months. And Italy, even more than Germany, is dependent on natural gas for its electricity production. So 45%, if I'm not mistaken, 40% of which come from Russia. Of course, the question is, first of all, maybe how are people feeling about this inflation? You know, in Germany, we see those videos of Italian citizens burning their electricity bills, the heating bills, which is probably for the German mind, for the German mentality, quite impossible to think how can they not pay their bills, you know. There's this joke about Lenin saying that if you want a revolution in Germany, people will first buy a ticket before they will enter a building, you know, something like that. But joke aside, how are people coping with this inflation and those protests? Are they bringing anything? Are they really avoiding to pay the bills, or is it just a symbol of protest? David, maybe?
Well,
Lorenzo, please start.
Well, honestly, we must be aware that this video don't reflect the real situation in Italy. There have been a few cases, but really a few cases, and mostly symbolic action, just to to bring the problem to the attention of media, but it's not real for the moment. The problem is that if nothing changes in a few months, people actually won't have the money to pay the bills, even if they want. And that's where inflation comes from.
David, please, Lorenzo, I'm sorry. Continue.
I think the first problem the new government will have to address is the cost of energy, because if we won't be able to address this problem, there will not be anymore that much to save in our industrial in our national industry.
Yes, indeed. Lorenzo, you said that the first policy issue of the new government will be to address inflation, and in particular to address energy inflation. David, first of all, but already the previous government, with participation of Lega, they already implemented some policy measures against inflation. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true. For when we were in the government, we made some action, very concrete, not too much ideological, especially about taxation of the gasoline and the oil generally. If you go even in any gas station in Italy, the price are not the real price of the market, but they are priced without taxation, because we made this with our minister in the government. So we try to address the situation. It's something similar that is now going on in France, because also if you go in France, you find a very cheap gasoline compared to Germany, Switzerland, or other country, even Belgium, where I live now. And then every government have to focus on that. There is two different approach. One is a Lega approach right now that we are pushing for some strong and action right now, even it will cost our budget, if we will not stay in the European, in the EU line for the budget, but just to prevent what can be even worse budget expenses that will come in winter. But otherwise, there is other school like Fratelli d'Italia right now, and also the Draghi, especially Draghi itself, that they don't want to push for a new budget expense right now, and just do some short and very small action right now, but just see what's happening in the European level for the coming moment. But I think for sure that it will be the first stuff to address. Now there is all this debate about the price cap of energy, the price cap of gas, especially. Today I read that the Council of Europe tried to make a deal about that, but just this evening Saudi Arabia and OPEC decided to cut the production. So I think when we have a cartel and there is basically an oligopoly of the seller trying to impose a cap from the buyer, I don't know how it will work in the end, and I'm not very confident it will be the real solution on that. We also don't have a real clear idea how we can deal with the market of energy right now, because yesterday I was in a debate here in Brussels with some other colleagues talking about that, and then they proved that even right now there is a European regulation of the price of the energy, but it's not a real rule of how it works. So it's the market that is already right now fixing itself. So it's not clear how with the market of Amsterdam, especially with gas, and we don't know how that can work, because all this market of the raw material are very volatile, not very stable, like it could be a stock market in New York or in Milano or in London. So I think that will be the huge challenge of the future. But to be back to the political scenario on that, the point of that is also we are paying some geopolitical problems, some geopolitical mistake made in the past that the upcoming government of the right wing have to deal, because we are paying the war in Libya. We are paying this because before the war in Libya, before Gaddafi was ousted by this Franco-English alliance, the situation was different for us, because Libya was our main energy supplier, and after that we became more and more reliable to Russia.
Let me just stop you right there, please, David. Can I stop you quickly? I would like to ask also Lorenzo, because as you said already, I guess the Draghi government, or as part of your coalition, already since February of this year, 66 billion euros Italy spent on supporting keeping the energy prices in Italy lower. And still, the average electricity bill in Italy doubled from around 630 euros last year to now it's estimated to rise to 1,320 euros this year, despite of these measures, tax measures, as David already said. And so, David, that's why I wanted to cut you quickly, because you said the main issue is geopolitical. Now, the interesting question is, of course, Salvini. He is more like Viktor Orban of Hungary. He is more this kind of a supporter of a pragmatic approach in foreign policy, which puts sovereignty at its highest place, and also which says that if we need to strike a deal with Russia, if I understand it right. And Meloni, on the other hand, of Fratelli d'Italia, she is said to be very transatlantic, and she is unlikely to come to a compromise with Russia concerning energy imports. But maybe Lorenzo, and then maybe afterwards, if you want, David, what will be the future energy policy of your coalition government, and especially in regards to geopolitics? David already said about Libya. Maybe we'll see some new action in this direction. Lorenzo, please.
Of course, since we cannot buy gas from Russia, we must we are looking for alternatives. I think we paid the mistake made in the past not to differentiate our sources. We must try to have as many different sources as possible to minimize the risk in case there is another crisis. The problem is that Libya, but also other North African countries, are not famous for being extremely stable. So we could find new sources of gas and maybe be fine for a few years, but in the long perspective, there is always the risk of new troubles. The only, I would say, really safe provider is Norway at the moment. That is a very stable country, but of course, Norway cannot provide gas or gasoline enough for the whole Europe. But on the long term, I don't know how this war will end, if there will be a treaty or if Russia will collapse. Anything is possible, but I think in the long term Russia will come back on the European energy market. Maybe with, I don't know, maybe with a new government, maybe in after Putin era, but we cannot go on forever without the Russian gas. I think not for the next 10, 20 years. Then maybe we will have new technologies and we will not depend that much on gas. There is a discussion also in Italy about nuclear energy. We voted a referendum in 2011 where Italian citizens choose not to have nuclear plants on our territory. Now there is some discussion. I think this choice could be reverted, could change, but anyway, it will take years, a lot of years, to have functioning nuclear plants. So it could be a possible solution on the long term, but in the next few years, we will rely honestly on gas, if not from Russia, from other sources.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you, David. Do you see a problem with different geopolitical views between Fratelli d'Italia, Meloni, and Salvini and Lega, and how will this affect your future energy policy?
Well, I think there is some on this situation, on this gas and energy crisis. We have a different approach. We are less ideological on this sanction approach than compared to Fratelli d'Italia, to be totally honest. And then the mistake that I was talking before is not only related to Libya, but is related also to the East Med pipeline with Israel that was blocked by the left, and then also with the relationship with Egypt. Egypt now with Eni, that is the Italian company provider for energy, have now discovered a huge gas storage in the sea, and we are not in the political relationship with Italy and Egypt are not very strong because they were undermined by the leftists in the recent year. So for the human rights and so on. But then we are okay to buying gas from Qatar and other countries. So this is a more geopolitical stance than also the ideological one, and we have to deal on that. And I think that it will be some internal debate in the right wing alliance related to the energy and to the geopolitical composition of our energy portfolio related to Russia, but not only related to Russia, related also to Azerbaijan. If we think that Azerbaijan is in a crisis and war with Armenia, so I think this will be also another topic that will be in the table. And also, Forza Italia is more on this pragmatic issue about the sanction. If we see the declaration of Silvio Berlusconi.
I see. You are cooperating, you're having a coalition government on the one hand with the Forza Italia, which is, you could call a centrist system party, because Berlusconi was in government already and he more or less was part of the European team, respected, which is unusual, of course, for right-wing parties. On the one hand. On the other hand, you have Meloni and Fratelli d'Italia, which is even worse for the system media than the Lega. I mean, they're being accused of being more right-wing and so on. But on the other hand, also they are more pro-American, which again makes them more favorable to the general media and the other governments in Europe which are in power now. So the question is, overall, not talking about inflation or energy, but other policy issues, migration, maybe climate policy, the taxes, expenditure, demography, and productivity, and so on. Where do you see, David, a continuation in economic policy, and where do you think you will have a new approach now with your coalition government?
Well, I think that on the economical level, we can have some changes about taxation, especially internally, for our perspective. We don't see any huge change on some European level. If we think about the mechanism built by the ECB and by the Eurozone right now, I think most of the change will be internally for the Italian side, in the Italian market. Then I think on the foreign policy, the new government gonna be in some way stable compared to the last one, maybe less ideological than the Conte II government, because even the Draghi government was not very, very ideological, despite the war and what's happening, but otherwise was in good relationship with everyone. Maybe on the China issue, it will be more, our new government will be more sensible to the threat of the infiltration of China in Europe and in Italy, compared to some more left government in Italy. But then the biggest change, I think, it will be about the migration policy, where we're gonna see for sure a change in our direction of the country. And then we're gonna see also differences related to some family issue and to family value approach in the coming years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lorenzo, what do you think? Where will the three right-wing parties be able to cooperate the most, and where will you see the need for more negotiations? Let's say it like that.
Well, of course, on the level of general values, for example, values, conservative values, family, hard work, etc. I think we share mostly share the same position, so it will be easy to find an agreement. Also on migration, well, the ideas are pretty the same. For a long time in Italy, we have seen a bit of confusion between refugees and economic immigrants. The legislation is not really clear, and judges can easily grant the right to stay in the country for humanitarian reasons, even to people that cannot be considered refugees according to international standards. So I think this will be an area where the new government, not revolution, just making the selection system a little bit faster and a little bit more efficient. In international level, well, I don't think anybody in the coalition is a big fan of Putin. I don't really think. The problem is that Lega is more rooted in the north of the country. That is the most industrialized part of the country. So the party, of course, pays special attention to the crisis of many industrial sectors that are mainly present in the north and are suffering for the price of energy. So I think it's not ideological. And I believe that once in the government, also Fratelli d'Italia and Forza Italia will have to face the fact that we need a balance between supporting Ukraine and avoiding the collapse of the Italian economy. And the same goes, in my opinion, for the sanctions against Russia. If the damages that we receive are larger and bigger than the damages that we are causing to Russia, there is something wrong.
Thank you very much for that. David, you in the beginning you said there will be a change in tax policy. The thing is, Italy has one of the highest tax to GDP ratios under the OECD countries, 43%. Compare that even, and we Germans think we have the highest taxes in the world, which are only 38.3% of the GDP. So on the other hand, also there is a problem with tax evasion in Italy, and I read digits that it's about 25% is the tax gap. So the theoretical tax revenue from the VAT, for example, value-added tax, should be 25% higher than it actually is. My question to you, so this is also, I guess, connected, David, to the question of productivity. Italy has a national debt of 160% of the GDP. It pays around 3.5% of GDP, 60 billion euros annually. It has to pay in interest to pay off debt. So, of course, every government now has to be very careful in not reducing taxes too much and not increasing social and general public expenditure too much. On the other hand, also, and that is the big issue, of course, is that you need economic growth. You need a growth of at least 3.5%. Now, this year it will be 3.2%. Next year it will be minus 0.5 due to inflation, due to the energy crisis. And in 2024, it might be again only 0.8%. So, returning to this question, taxes. You said there will be a change. What do you mean with that? Will you lower taxes? Will you raise them? Will you have a wealth tax? What do you see?
I think the right-wing government is going to work on decreasing the tax burden on people and also in the corporate one, because we have one of the biggest in Europe. Maybe only Belgium is a little bit worse, and but in general, I think it's one of the worst in Europe. And then in our program, in the right-wing program, it was written that we are going to move in decreasing the tax burden. There is different theory in our government, in our ruling party, because when Forza Italia and Lega are advocating the flat tax, so for the revolution of the fiscal system in Italy, so going to this proportional system that we have right now, progressive one, to go into to a flat tax like some other country in Eastern Europe. The Fratelli d'Italia is less on board on that. So we're gonna see what will be the direction. We already have a flat tax for the free worker, like especially for the young one. for the young one, and like where when you pay the direct back to the state, like lawyer or this type of work, we have already a flat tax system working right now from the Conte One government. So we're gonna try to implement these to other sector and other workers. But for sure, the purpose of our government will be to lowering the tax burden on the people, and that is very related to the tax evasion, because Italy have a very Byzantine bureaucratic tax code and a very bureaucratic tax system that is full of loophole. And when you have a huge tax burden, you encourage also people to try to avoid them and to try to escape from them, because you try all this rule make very easy to use some loophole and around and maybe make some fake residency or make some fake invoice and then manipulating the taxation. So we have to be strict on who have to pay the taxes, but otherwise we have to make comfortable to the people to pay taxes, because otherwise if people cannot pay, they will not pay the taxes. It's not the point that how much you fine. You fine them and then no one will pay. And especially with the depression that we're gonna maybe affront in the future, I wish not, but maybe we can have some economic turbulences, and we cannot deal with that, because also if you're comparing about the growing of the economy, yes, but this is a growing compared to the year before, and the year before was already down. So the point is that this stagnation is going only down, and even with the economic crisis, people for sure gonna pay less taxes because they're gonna produce less and consume less. So it's like a nonsense turnaround.
That is very interesting. I want to bring several lenses for Italy tonight. In Germany, a lot of myths about the Italian economy. Of course, there still is correct criticism. Maybe we all have to each other. But I would like to break some lenses, as we say in German. One is that actually since 2012, Italy had a export surplus. So it didn't live over its means; it lived below its means. It was a net exporter. The whole problem with high government debt and the need to pay off interest payments isn't something which a populist Lega government is fault, which is often unfortunately represented like this in the media. It is a debt which came from governments which were in power 40 years ago. In the 1990s, 1980s, and since for a decade already, Italy, if you take out the net interest payments for paying up debt, you have had a deficit surplus the past decade. But still, another issue is an aging population. The average age in Italy is 47. The fertility rate is 1.3 children per woman in Italy, which is very, very low. Even Germany has a higher rate of 1.5. And the problem of this, of course, is pensions. Pension payments are one of the highest in the OECD countries, 16% of GDP. Italy is number one in the amount of pension payments. So, but David, what I understand now, what you said, we are not going to decrease social contributions. We're not going to do that. We will want to outgrow, the new right-wing government wants to outgrow debt and become more productive in that sense, lower taxes for this purpose. But still, there will be the issue of cutting expenditures. And so maybe Lorenzo and David later, is there a possibility for your government, for the right-wing government, to cut expenditure, especially, of course, addressing the critics from the mainstream media, which are afraid that this new government will go on a spending spree? Lorenzo, please.
Well, honestly, of course, the fertility rate in Italy is so low for social and cultural, but especially for economic reasons. If young people cannot find an employment, cannot afford to rent an apartment, they will not start a family. It's normal. I think we should not cut social expenditures, but remodulate it to focus on what's really important. For example, families with young children. And well, there is a debate in Italy. The five-star movement introduced this basic income that is has an incredible cost and has proven not to be effective in order to help people finding a job. It needs to be reformed. And the the three winning parties, they all, maybe with different approaches, but they all agree that there are some changes to be made to this basic income. And I think we should save some resources, reducing the use of basic income and limiting it to people who are not able to work. And with the resources we will get from this remodulation, we could help, for example, young parents with multiple children, etc., and try to increase a little bit also the fertility rate, because if we compare Italy and France, that are very similar on several social and cultural aspects, the fertility rate is different, but France is investing a lot on families, with providing schools for free, providing books, providing a lot of services to families, and there is nothing like that in Italy. And that's a problem. I think it's another problem that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
And
Lorenzo, that's very interesting, because indeed France has among the European countries the highest fertility rate, 2.5 actually, if I'm not mistaken, which is I have to check this, but one of the highest still. Of course, critics might say this is due to a large part of a Muslim population in France, but this is not the issue for tonight. You said the focus will be on family policy, conservative family values, making children worthwhile having again. I think that's a wonderful aim, and I wish much success to this to the new government. But still, the question remains, David: are there areas where the new government might and want to reduce expenditure?
I think that one of the policies that also we can try to work on that is trying to maximize and to have a useful use of the public worker, because Italy also is kind of well known for have a huge payroll for a public worker. I think we have to reorganize our public administration, because on that level we have so many not useful situation. I think maybe about even this very common joke about Italy about the forest worker, about this forest police, that there is region in Italy where they maybe have more forest and forest police than Canada. So they have less forest than Canada. So it's a trend that we can work, and we have to work on our public administration, and that's why also we are campaigning, and Lega has always campaigned on the federal reform, because we have to make also the law and the regional bureaucracy affordable for their own citizens, and they have to be responsible for their own money, because there is no free money, and so it's not useful to have maybe some local government using our taxpayer money for their own political interest. So I think to address this situation, to address also the new organization of the public administration, we have to affront and we have to deal with a public and constitutional reform about the aspect of our public administration.
Indeed, that's very interesting. I heard, of course, that this is actually Italy already under the Lega government did a lot of reforms, and one of the big issues remains, of course, the effectiveness of public administration, especially not only in the north but in the south. But moving forward,